everyone. Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you're playing characters Mannix, Celeste, Gillian, George, or Theron, go away. But hopefully you did level up. This video is not meant for you, but for the rest of you, welcome aboard. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. Catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you would like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to platinum patrons Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, and Rivzung, and gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Markel State, Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. I have been really excited about D&D lately, y'all. Real excited. Last night, I finished watching a movie I do a weekly live tweet movie watching of my extensive movie collection, which is now archaic because everybody just streams things all the time, so... Anyway, and, it usually ends. We started after the kiddo goes to bed. We've been doing it for pretty much since she was born as a kind of our date night thing. Anyway, usually afterwards, I don't really do much because it ends between 11 and 12. And then last night, I was just so excited about prepping D&D. I literally jumped on my computer for another hour and just did D&D prep because we're getting to Omu and we're getting to some exciting stuff. And I'm really looking forward to it. Not that I feel like the campaign... dragged or anything before that too much, but we are over a year's worth of campaign, and we're just now getting to Omu, and I think that Omu and the Fane and the Tomb is the real star attraction of this entire campaign. I really think it comes together all in the end. The Hex Crawl has some cool moments in there, depending on how you do the Hex Crawl, and I thought we had fun doing some side content and some personal quests and all that, but I am really looking forward to doing Omu. It's got a really great Overland Map that we can use in place of basically the Chult map. This is going to be the new map we're going to use to go around. I can put together all these other mini maps for encounters. All the shrines look really cool. I'm finally diving in. I mean, we have been on Chapter 2 of Tomb of Annihilation for the last 40 sessions. Literally all of that was just Chapter 2. It's like Storm King's Thunder setup where it's this whole chapter is the entire world. Good luck, DM. And now finally we're entering Chapter 3, which is Omu, and I'm really stoked about it. I'm really excited about it. Hey, Tiny, Mike, and Juicy, welcome aboard to Crafting. I guess I usually do a post-mortem first, though. So you can see here I've got some work that I'm doing. I realized that I need to get rid of this black bar because it's kind of in the way. I don't have to change maps too often, but during crafting, I certainly do. And I realize that's kind of annoying on the overlay is to have that there, although it works better here, so there's not really a good... I guess I could use a different overlay for crafting, but I don't know. That's probably nitpicky. I realize I archived Hrakamar, though, so I need to bring that back up if we're actually going to cover it. Hrakamar, restore. I'm pretty neat and tidy when it comes to the maps, or try to be. So once we're done with an area, obviously, I archive it right up. So let's discuss the end of Hrakamar first. So the PCs did short rest, which was good. I definitely tried to be as clear as possible when it comes to this smelter room and the fact that the fire newts were, all over that. They'd fortified this area pretty extensively. I wasn't necessarily trying to tell the players don't go this way, but I wanted to be very clear about the situation they were in, so there wasn't going to be any kind of stealth, basically through here at all. And I thought they responded very well by essentially going around. I was impressed that they actually dealt with the prisoners, which was kind of funny because I definitely broke the fourth wall whenever they were interrogating the prisoners, going, this one would have given you good information, but this one probably would have sounded the alarm with its screaming, so probably best that you just ended up skipping the prisoners, but I'm glad that they finally did end up rescuing them anyway, and they were able to give a little bit of information, but at that point, it was a bit anticlimactic that you rescue them after the fact. On the other hand, I'm glad they didn't just completely ignore them until the end of the dungeon. But I enjoyed that this one was more about small skirmishes rather than another big battle. We just had 2 entire sessions that were nothing but combat. Now, that can be very enjoyable. And certainly, my players enjoy combat. I enjoy combat. From what I can understand, a lot of y'all enjoy combat. But that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fighting, and it was a lot of the same kind of fighting. It was just fighting the same enemies. The battlefield wasn't necessarily super dynamic. At some point, I was just looking at it, going, I don't want to do a third session of the players fighting fire newt. So that's why I'm glad we ended things at the end of the session before, where both sides were backing off and regrouping. And I'm glad the players didn't just try to assault the main area again. I mean, again, that would have been their choice if they wanted to do that, but it would have ended up being another big fight, essentially. So instead, we had a little skirmish here between some the fire newt warlocks and some giant striders. I love that Kaless was committed to like pulling the Grand Theft Auto move of like knocking one of them over and then mounting. I don't know if I did the rules right for that. I kind of winged it, but I know that anytime it seems like you want to be able to grab and forcefully shove someone, I usually treat that as a grapple and move, and that takes up one of your attacks. And unfortunately, rogues are not very well set up for that because they only have the one attack, and their one attack is, does a ton of damage. So rogues, I don't think, are typically built for the I'm going to grab this person and shove him over here kind of gameplay style compared to other martial fighters. But she was committed to just at that point, it was easier for her to just fucking kill the guy and then mount the strider as I think a subsequent action. I actually forgot how I ran that, but I think I treated that as an action to have to actually mount the creature, but I don't recall now. I think I did. But anyway, and I didn't even realize until she was on top of it and the creature tried to throw her off and failed. I was like, oh shit, this is finally my chance. Finally my chance to get a player into the lava, because the giant strider would be like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to jump into the lava and we'll deal with that from there. Now, I have no idea how giant striders, they don't have a swimming speed, but I literally pictured them like a duck. So like their bottom, a duck swims. It's the bottom. It's like a boat. Ducks are built like boats. And so I figured that Kaless would not necessarily be in the lava. She would be on top of the strider in the lava, but then that would create a more interesting battlefield location for her and just make the fight more interesting too, with this bird running past. And it did take a lot of damage because everybody had their, overwatches set up and attacks of opportunity, and giant striders don't have a lot of armor class. So they had almost killed it. So I figured that was going to happen. Like maybe it would die before I even got there. When it did get there, I was really impressed with George using his vine whip to essentially reel in the strider. If there has ever been a case of a player getting more use out of a custom magic item, I don't think I've seen it in terms of my own campaigns. I have been so proud and so impressed with how George has used this vine whip sword in such creative, interesting, fun ways. I wish every magic item that I came up with that I gave to the players would be that effective. That has become like the gold standard. At this point, it is such an iconic part of his gameplay style and his repertoire of combat abilities. And I love the fact that first he was willing to like grab Kaless with it, and then he realized, oh wait, I could just attack the strider and bring it over there. So it's a little bit, I kind of play it by ear in terms of like, well, if he kills it in the same attack, does he still drag it and that kind of thing? And ultimately I decided that yes, you could still drag the body over. So essentially he was able to save Kaless via the vine whip sword. But I loved that. That was great. And it made this fight a little more fun and interesting, which was cool. And obviously there were only two fire newts and two striders. There wasn't a whole lot of damage back and forth. It was over pretty quick, and then we got to assault the eastern side, which was fun because again, I all but told them like there's a back door here, but I think they mentioned at one point like, well, I don't think there was any other way to go, and I said, well, I think Mannix used his owl also to scout ahead, which was good, but I never want to force the players down a specific lane if I can, but I do want to give them as much information as I can, because a lot of times players won't necessarily ask about that kind of thing. They'll just go with the knowledge that they have. And so as a DM, I do feel like I have to be forthcoming when it comes to a lot of those things that they might not remember or not realize or something like that. And I'll play it by ear too. If I think it's something that would make the adventure more fun and interesting and the players would enjoy, then I will definitely be more forthcoming with that information. But Players are able to easily hop across. Everybody's got at least 10 strength to hop the 10-foot gap here. And again, another little skirmish, which I think worked out well because this is a more interesting battlefield. I loved Gillian jumping in the buckets and going across, and the visual of her like sniping, out while chaining across these buckets. Theron turning on an Allosaurus and running at the fire newts, although he was hilariously ineffective with his rolls. And then Kalest just butchering fire newts left and right. I did get to use my smoke method. Yay, I got the smoke method. I was so happy. I just finally had it show up in this corner because they were finally near where it was. And Kalest immediately picked up on the fact that, we can use this smoke method to our advantage. And it was just kind of a funny little thing. I don't know. It was a neat little moment to use a friendly NPC, but not overuse them, if that makes sense. It's not like it's a permanent party member that's going to join them or anything. It was just there to kind of aid in that one fight. They definitely didn't need it, but I just thought it made it more memorable and fun. So I'm glad we got to use the smoke method and really helped the players kind of jump in here and be more and have a more of a stealthy opportunity that they wouldn't have at all had they assaulted this western side. And then really around the time, and by then, we had 2 fights. We were assaulting the door here. They had butchered their way in very effectively, taking almost no damage. And then by the time they opened the door and they had very dramatically killed a bunch of people, at that point, I was thinking, okay, surrender is definitely on the table because I don't know how much the Fire Newts would fight. I mean, they feel like they've got a good fortification here, so maybe they would try to hold out a little longer. But now that the players have completely made it through this far and made it through the back door here, essentially, and murdered their way through it, the Fire Newts aren't crazy, and they're not necessarily, they are militaristic, but they're not, I don't think, I mean, it's up to me, I guess, ultimately, but I don't think they would necessarily like fight to the death or anything like that. So they were absolutely willing to surrender. I was just picturing an enemy army. Like they just like, all right, we'll surrender. Just let us live and we'll get out of here. And, the players can't take prisoners or anything. So, and that worked out really well. I thought Kalest did a good job of kind of accepting the surrender and taking charge of the situation and ultimately marched all the Fire Newts out because I really didn't have, I didn't have a desire for this fight either. I don't know, even had Kalest screwed up the whatever check I had her make, I guess it was persuasion or something, I probably would have just made the players do more things, like, role play a little bit more to convince. I don't think I necessarily would have failed and ended with a whole nother combat encounter. Maybe like one more round of fighting. I'm not quite sure there. Hindsight, it's difficult to tell, but I know for sure this would not have been a straight up fight to the death because as a DM, I was not interested in having yet another big Fire Newt battle, and I don't think the players were in for that either, even though they were more well rested and frankly had their spirits pretty high because of the way they were able to kick ass and roll up in here. So I think it was fun. I think it was a good ending to Hrakhamar. I feel like we ticked all the boxes. The only thing that I'm disappointed in, and this is a consequence of how I changed Hrakhamar, is I'm disappointed that we didn't at all do the vault. And it makes sense why we didn't, because I specifically changed Hrakhamar to make it that the dwarves were nearby. They were involved in skirmishes. They had, tasked the players with going to Hrakhamar. They were very concerned about their vault. And the players, they are kind of anti-heroes in a lot of ways, but they're like, well, we're going to get rewarded anyway for doing this. But if we loot this vault, then that's kind of going to fuck us up with the dwarves who we're doing this quest for, which it would. So it's unfortunate because I basically painted them into a corner with it. So I feel a little responsible for that. Just because I think the actual treasury trap is kind of interesting. And I had actually changed it. I even made a handout for it, y'all. Which I almost never do. This one, Hrakhamar Vault Door. I made a little riddle quiz because the one as written was lame. It was just, there were like 2 locks. If you open the wrong one first, then the trap is activated. The key's like down here in the shrine. I'm going to skip all that. I'm just going to turn this into a door puzzle. The door puzzle, the idea here. So this is me getting able to reveal something that I'm probably not going to use at all, even though I made a little graphic for it. So fun fact, I took one of the Acererak puzzle riddle, or what is it? It's just what do you call those? The tomb warnings in the Tomb of the Nine Gods. Let's see, what are they referred to as? Acerek's warnings. Okay, so if you notice, it's literally the same I took the background. I did a very sloppy like Photoshop, whatever the GIMP, the open source one is that I have, and kind of smudged out the words and then wrote my own text in there. So it's literally based on this panel. Uh, and the idea here is it says in Dwarvish, only a proud and true dwarf will find the key. Each letter can be pressed, and you have to press the right letters to open the door. And the solution is that you have to press the letters OPEN in that order. So just kind of a neat little puzzle idea that I had that I thought was going to be fun. But then I realized, towards the end of that session, when I was telling about the treasure, I'm like, oh, wait, it makes no sense for you guys to actually loot this treasury or even attempt this because you told the dwarves you weren't going to, and it would kind of screw you up with that whole quest if you actually looted the door. So I was bummed because I really liked this puzzle I'd come up with. It's just kind of neat because there's not a whole lot of those kind of riddle puzzles up until you get to the Omu section. We really hadn't had a lot in this whole campaign so far, and I don't think I made it too difficult. Although they'd probably be trying to find like key. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know. It's a really hard thing to design good puzzles in D&D because you cannot make them too hard or obtuse. You'll just frustrate and confuse your players. You want them to be engaged, and frankly, I think being able to solve puzzles, even if they're kind of on the easy side, is very confidence building and makes everybody feel good. So I kind of try to err more towards the easy, but that's a very hard thing to do because obviously what seems easy to me, well, I designed the damn puzzle, so of course it's easy to me. So that's a bummer because I actually made this handout, put all this together, and then only later did I realize, oh wait, they're actually never going to come anywhere near this door. And if they press the wrong letters, that activates the same trap, which retracts this bridge, which would be an interesting hazard because then you're stuck over there and you have to come up with some way to cross the lava. But alas, we didn't get to that. So that's the only real bummer of Frackamar. Everything else I think went really well. We fought a lot of fire newts. We did a little. We were able to engage in little skirmishes here and there. We had some lava danger, which was fun. So I tried to shove an Allosaurus into the lava, which was actually pretty close, I think, with the strength check. Poor Reese was rolling really bad that whole evening with the attacks, and then but he did manage to not get shoved into lava, so that was good. So yeah, they completed Frackamar, and given the number of sessions that they had, I let them level up to 7, which I know that was something that I was still on the fence of whenever we were entering Frackamar. But at this point, they have been level 6 for let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sessions. So that seems like a lot. That's actually fewer sessions than levels 4 and 5. Very unique campaign. I've commented on this a lot of times, but very heavy tier 1, which I don't think we've seen too much of. Well, I say that, and I obviously haven't played many of the campaigns, but I feel like Storm Kings rockets you to the later levels pretty quick. If you play Princes, I feel like that one you go through the lower tiers pretty quick. It just seems like it wasn't the case because we played obviously Lost Mine first. Reading through Descent into Avernus, that one rockets you through the low levels really quickly. In order to get to the tier 2, which seems like to be where most D&D is played, is like tier 2 and then early tier 3. But Tomb of Annihilation, the entire Chult jungle, that hex crawl is all tier 1. It's all of these dungeons that we're looking at now. All the content that we've done is basically designed for levels 1 through 5, maybe even maybe 6. So it's been really tricky. In the low levels, I put the PCs with a bunch of NPCs to try to keep them alive, and now in the later levels, like Frackamar and Wormheart Mine, I've scaled things up a bit because now they're reaching them a little bit later. So unlike Princes, where each dungeon was like, here's the level 4 dungeon, here's the level 5 dungeon, it was much easier to balance level-wise. But now that we're 7, we are at the right time to enter Omu, I believe. Can I pull that up again? Where was that under? Journal. Start here. Maybe starting the adventure. Or would it be under Welcome to Chult? Let's see. It's backgrounds. There's some parts. I don't think Welcome to Chult's. Just gonna have information. Skimming. I'm trying to remember where were the level ranges. I've looked this up before. It's a handout. Maybe introduction. Story overview. Running the adventure. Adventure summary. Seems like it's the right spot. Looking through a table. There we go. All right. So, okay. Land of Chult is actually 1st through 6th level. So we did that right. I think, we got through 6 levels all in the chapter 2. Chapter 3 can be 5th through 8th level. So beginning chapter 3 at 7th level, I think is totally fine and appropriate. Fane of the Night Serpent then is 7th through 9th. So my plan right now, I believe, will be to keep them 7th level through most of Omu, assuming they get captured and taken to the Fane towards the end of Omu, towards the end of their running around trying to get the shrines done and all that. And level them up to 8th level, essentially when they wake up in the Fane. I'm hoping I can pull off a capture. That's going to be a real important Crafting Annihilation episode, I'll tell you that. And they'll be 8th level for all of the Fane, and then there'll be good timing to be 9th level upon entering the tomb. And then things get tricky, because I'll have to decide when to level them up while they're in the tomb, because the tomb is gigantic. And I imagine will take us a lot of sessions. And I don't know where the good breaks would be in order to give them some nice level ups in between. If there's some, I need to reread that. I mean, I'm rereading the whole section of Omu right now because I'm doing Omu. I'll need to reread that and see where the level ups would be. But my goal right now would be obviously 7th level. We're heading into Omu. 8th level when they get captured and put into the Fane, hopefully. And then 9th level when they're ready to go into the tomb. And then really just kind of play it. And maybe they don't level up again after that. Who knows? I would expect they would make it to at least 10th, maybe even 11th. But, it's all milestones, so it's all kind of up to me. So we are done with Hrakamar. So we finished. I can talk about Theron's thing. So this was Theron's personal quest. I weaved in. One of the things is I made sure to read all of Tomb of Annihilation, obviously, before we started. And then once I knew what the characters were playing, and I gently pushed them towards certain directions that would make sense for the campaign. Because again, especially with Tomb of Annihilation, it's such a remote location that you really have to have specific ties. Like, why is your character going to Chult? Like, if your entire backstory has to do with some city or somewhere else, that's harder for me as a DM to try to figure out how to tie that into Chult. So I made sure to do that from the beginning, and everybody's got some reasons for being in Chult, although I believe George is just from Chult, so he's just kind of going back home. Mannix is looking for Artist Kimber. Kaless is looking for Zagmira, her former slave master, Red Wizard. Gillian, of course, we actually did hers first, which was the Typhoon Palace. She was looking for her brother, who had crash-landed in Chult. George, as I mentioned, is probably the least story-intensive. He's just hunting monsters in Chult to prove himself as a ninja warrior, ninja turtle. And then Theron's was to help his friend Hugh Hackenstone, which then kind of bled over into helping Musharib in terms of just helping all the dwarves. So that was an example of when he was wanting to play a druid from the beginning, and I actually put Reese, and I actually pushed him towards playing as hey, can you play a dwarf? Because I've got some really great ways of tying you into the campaign that way. And he looked at it and said yeah, that sounds good. So I was able to tie him into this whole area. So really, all of Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar was basically a part of, kind of a part of Theron's personal quest, but also was obviously part of Tomb of Annihilation. Whereas the Typhoon Palace, I didn't make up myself. That was from the Turtle package, but was not technically part of Tomb of Annihilation. So we inserted that in here. I believe that's the only one that we actually had to fully insert as a whole new area in a big dungeon. The rest of them, I was able to plop kind of all their stories with existing elements. And Gillian's and Theron's were the only ones that basically didn't involve Omu, so they were going to happen first. And the idea here is they gain these special unique items or abilities upon completing their personal quest. So Gillian got the bagpipes and her flying monkey brother spirit. And then Theron, which we just really came up with recently. I forgot how this. I know Jordan. I'm going to give you a shout out. D&D for Dummies in the chat a lot of times, the streams. I don't know if I came up with it or you came up with it or we were just spitballing off each other, but there was a moment where we thought about because we couldn't give anybody armor because this party is so goofy that nobody wears medium or heavy armor, which was an obvious reward for them to get, which would be adamantine armor. We decided, well, what about putting armor on the inside, basically turning Theron into like a Wolverine type character, which I thought was a really neat idea. I came up with how to implement it with the Constitution saving throws, which I think the idea there was, and it's difficult because I couldn't really do exhaustion or anything like that because they could just sit here and rest forever. It doesn't really matter. So I figure, well, if I can just do enough damage to him, then that could create a lasting injury, and if he goes down to 0, so that could be the one thing I did. So every save he had to make would have resulted in him taking a lot of damage, like a 40-10 or something, to where if he failed like 2 or 3, he might have actually gone down to 0 hit points, and the procedure still would have gone successful, and all the stats are the same. But he might have hit 0 hit points and then ended up with a lingering injury. Would have been the only real difference there. Lasting injury. I don't know if it's lingering or lasting injury. But yeah, so I can repeat what he's got because it is a custom thing, and I just kind of combined different abilities and effects, honestly. So it's got 2 positive qualities and 2 negative qualities. Actually, I guess it's 3 positive qualities if you count these differently. So one of them is that he is immune to crits. So crits against him are treated as normal hits. That's the adamantine armor part. The second part is a +1 to armor class that persists through his wild shape forms, which is also very big because one of the biggest detriments to wild shaping is that you have garbage, beast armor class. You have like a 12 or 13. Granted, you have all those new hit points, but really low AC. So that's big. You get a +1. And the other bonus is that it's offensive based. So all his unarmed or natural weapon melee attacks have +1 to attack and damage. And I guess I should have just said a +1 attack, and he does an extra 1d6 bludgeoning damage. I thought about literally doing the Wolverine claws, and we're like, I'll just give you the stuff on the inside, because that's actually like Wolverine's mutant power was to shoot out the bone claws, and they just laced the things to there, and Theron doesn't have bone claws, so he's just got like hard metal fists that now persist through. Again, I wanted to come up with something that he could use because he wild shapes all the time. So it's like, what do you get the person who wild shapes all the time in terms of a magic item that they care about? And with Theron, it hasn't been much. He uses his Thorn staff pretty much exclusively to cast Wall of Thorns because it is a big game-changing spell. And then that's basically it. He just wild shapes and goes to town. So I figure I'll just make him more powerful with that. Now, the cool thing is I did create some very interesting detriments to go along with that because, having a metal skeleton can come with some complications. And one of them is he takes damage when he wild shapes to his original form. So wild shaping hurts him 2d10 psychic damage. Not a whole lot, but enough to, maybe give you pause especially if you're very wounded or something and you have to wild shape. So that could be a possibility there. And essentially takes a toll on his original form. And plus, whenever this is the fun one. I believe I took this directly from I either took it from the Berserker Axe or I took it from the Flesh Golem. They both have similar things. I think it's from the Berserker Axe. If you look up that item in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe that has this similar effect. So essentially, whenever, in fact, I might have actually combined them. Let's see what the Berserker Axe is. I want to talk about this effect because I know I mentioned this effect, but nobody saw this in action. Nobody saw the stats on it until last Friday's session. All right, Berserker Axe. Yes. Okay, I might have actually just taken word for word from this one. Whenever a hostile creature dances on page 155 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Whenever a hostile creature damages you while the axe is in your possession, you must succeed on a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw or go berserk. Excuse me. While berserk, you must use your action each round to attack the creature nearest to you with the axe. I think I literally just copy and pasted this. So if you have extra attack, you have to use them all. Moving to attack the next target creature after you fail your current target. If you have multiple possible targets, you attack one at random. You are berserk until you start your turn with no creatures within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear. This is the key here. You do not get to repeat this saving throw. 5th edition lets players repeat saving throws because obviously we figured out that shutting somebody down for the entire length of combat because they missed one saving throw fucking sucks. So repeating saving throws is a thing in 5th edition. This one, however, does not let you repeat the saving throw. Once you go berserk, you are berserk for the rest of combat until no creature, enemy or ally, obviously, is within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear. Now, they did a really fun thing where the players immediately thought, oh, we'll drop a darkness on him. And that's really clever. I would probably allow that. Maybe I would make people roll stealth checks. I don't know. I'd have to play with that depending on how much the party actually games that a little bit. But I actually think because it makes sense that a party working with that would develop. It's the same thing like Hulk in Age of Ultron. Like they develop a way to control this powerful creature. So I kind of like that idea that they were like immediately like, oh, we can drop a darkness spell on top of him, and that would make the beast not be, because I don't believe he gets dark vision, and I don't think dark vision, even if he's got it, pierces through magical darkness. So I think that actually would be pretty effective. Maybe I would let Theron roll a perception check and have everybody else roll stealth checks, maybe, because he could still hear somebody. So I could really play with it and be mean about it. I'd have to decide. I really have to decide on a ruling for that. And really have to look at darkness, and he does have a really good wisdom saving throw. He actually has the odds with him. I believe he's got a plus 7. Yeah, he's got a plus 7. So DC 15 Wiz saving throw. He has to roll an 8 or better to not go berserk. That's not, I don't know what the percentage of that is, but I think he's got like a 60, maybe even 70% chance of not going berserk. And it only triggers when he takes damage, but it does happen every time he takes damage. So that could be a really interesting thing. I'm hoping they can, he's stronger now, but also there's a bit of a wild card element there where he can be this monstrous creature going crazy and attacking everybody nearby. So that could be a very interesting thing. Plus, if they're still in the middle of the combat and he goes berserk, dropping darkness can fuck up the rest of the party very much so too. So I like that one. The other thing I played around with doing was to give him some method of like a bag of tricks, but for wild shape. So like he could transform into different creatures that he hasn't seen yet, but he wouldn't be able to choose. So it'd be like he'd have to roll in a D10 table to wild shape. And maybe he turns into like, one of them might be like a bunny rabbit, and another one might be, a shark, or it'd just be kind of fun and crazy, but I'd have to make it worth doing. There'd be some powerful ones in there because otherwise why would he choose to do it? Ultimately, I didn't do it because I would have to make a lot more like tokens. It would have been like a lot more work on my end. And I liked this, Wolverine, Captain America style kind of making of a superhero. So I think he enjoyed it too. So I think that's a good plus. I'm still working on other players' things. Mannix, I am planning on turning his vest. He had like a vest with 100 pockets in it or something, and I'm planning on giving him that cool magic item where you can peel off. By the way, it is hoodie weather now, if you can't tell. We are in fall. It's I think it's a robe where you can peel off patches and they become items. I think it's the robe of many things. Is that it? But I thought that would be a really great, and that would fit Mannix to a T. Is like, because he's got all these like finite or things that he can use. Robe of useful items. There it is, page 195. I think I would change things around because some of them are kind of silly. Like one of them is you just pull out a bag of 100 gold pieces. So I think I would kind of play around with it and make it. The pit is pretty funny. The pit and the door, like those are just really. That's like bonkers stuff that you can pull out. So I like the idea behind it. I would probably switch it a little bit. It'd also be funny if he pulled out and didn't know which one. But I think you're supposed to know which one that you pull off. So they're pictures of certain things that you can pull out and use. But I think that'd be really funny. So turn his vest into a vest of useful items that essentially has him pulling items out of his pocket, and he would have a finite number of actual items everywhere. It just pulls out a rowboat. Like I don't know. I picture that could be really, really fun and funny and used in the right circumstances. Useful things. Thank you. Yes. So that's the plan for Mannix. For George, I was planning on completing his Ninja Turtle ensemble. His main quest is to, or his final personal quest is to take out the King of Feathers, which is a big boss monster in Omu, which I'm probably going to have to take another look at because I don't think it's that strong written as is. And I believe the reward for that is a helm of telepathy, but I think I'm going to change that into, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle bandana that he wears. I don't know what kind of effects it would have, but that's kind of the idea. And then Kaless, I have zero idea. I have no idea what I'm going to do with Kaless whenever she meets Zagmira and the Red Wizards who are poking around Omu. So before we get to Omu, we do have the Valley of Lost Honor. Now, I initially thought of putting up a few final hex crawl things because, we're back on the map. This is our last chance to get some hex crawl stuff in before Omu. Honestly, though, I am so excited about Omu and getting the players to Omu. There's so much good stuff in there. There's a lot of good storytelling. Red Wizards, there's Yuan-Ti, there's dinosaurs, there's the shrines, there's puzzles. It just seems like such a fun, interesting location with a good balance of role-playing and combat and exploration and puzzle solving. I just want to get to Omu as fast as possible. And as you all know, the players can long rest now with the hut and the hex crawl. When you long rest every day, you can't really throw, like, any combat encounter essentially turns trivial unless it's artificially inflated to make it really difficult. And frankly, they just went through the ringer between Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar in terms of combat. Like, there was a lot of combat in those dungeons. It was almost nothing but combat, frankly. So initially I was planning on having this whole big thing with the fire newts and having the fire newts chase them and all these combat encounters, but I think I got over that during this week, and I'm literally just writing out story stuff. I'm just saying hey, you're traveling. I'm going to mention the fact that they see the fire newts kind of in the distance, kind of a classic when you see the mounted warrior maybe carrying the flag in the distance, and they're just I want to paint the picture that the valley is crawling with fire newts, but and the players did the fire newts accepted their surrender, moved out of Hrakamar. So the idea here is the fire newts aren't necessarily honorable or anything like that, but they respect the player's strength. And what they would really want to see is that this group specifically leaves the valley. So, and because they left some of them alive to basically go tell the other fire newts hey, this group right here isn't fucking around. They rolled up in us and killed a bunch of fire newts. Yes, maybe the fire newts would try to attack them, but what I was really going to paint the picture of is the fire newts just having a show of force just kind of around them, in the distance, and just making sure the players leave the valley, and really having this cool moment of the players kind of had the fire newts march out, the party, and now it's the fire newts making sure the party marches out of the Valley of Lost Honor, and they're not really going to jack with them at all. It's just from a distance, you see dozens and then hundreds of fire newts kind of, just watching you all the time, but they never get very close and they never interact with you. So I just want to have the players have that kind of uneasy feeling of being very obviously watched and monitored and scouted. But otherwise, I really don't feel a need to. And we've fought, so many fire newts. And Jordan D&D for Dummies sent me a really long email that was awesome and had a lot of good information about, how to employ different kinds of fire newts and all that. And I do appreciate all of that, but I really feel like we're all fire newted out in a way. So I think I really just want to get them to Omu, which is the same reason that we got on the ship and went. We got out of the jungle essentially once we got to level 5, because I feel like I've pretty much squeezed as much hex crawl out of there as I could. So, and the valley, I don't think necessarily has too many of its own unique encounters. The only ones I could think that I could see were fire newts and giant scorpions. I think were the only two. And again, they're level 7, which is which is now beyond what these random encounters are built for. And they can long rest every night. So yeah, I can throw some giant scorpions at them, but what's that going to do but just slow us down, frankly? It doesn't have anything to do with the story. If you can't tell, I'm, who are you trying to prove here? Who are you trying to convince here, me or you? I'm trying to convince myself that we don't need any combat encounters during the Valley of Lost Honor is what I'm trying to say. Only thing you really need is the Stone Sisters. Yeah. Oh, hey, Jordan. I've seen you. I got to catch up on the chat. So I do have Stone Sisters updates. And I do have, I literally, a lot of what I've been doing for prep work is finally doing some actual story stuff. Like, we just haven't done a whole lot of that. Like, there's been some interactions, Hugh, with the Wormheart Mine, a little bit, maybe like Kobold, not really much with Wormheart Mine. And then Harakamar, I've written a bit of stuff with the Albino Dwarves, but not really a whole lot of big dialogue descriptive scenes. And now I've got already like 2 pages worth, in my notes about stuff that I have as the players approach Omu, and then before that. So I will mention, 2 big story things are going to happen. One of them is the Stone Sisters will visit them, although reading the description of this hut, which continues to be the bane of my existence, I don't know if the hags can actually get into the hut, even on the ethereal plane. I'm not sure what the rules are for that, but the hut straight up says no magical effects. God damn, that hut is just so freaking solid. Why does every party not do that if they can have it? So I've flavored it to where it's like the evening or something. They're setting up. They haven't done the hut yet, and the Stone Sister is just, and it's not really a visit. It's just like there's some connections there. Again, I'm trying to get around the fact that the villains never show up in this campaign except for the Stone Sisters, and it's all like just nightmare haunting shit. And there's some kind of connection with the players there, so they can kind of peer in on each other. So the idea here is the Stone Sisters see them again, essentially, now that they're in the mainland. They're up above the surface. So the Stone Sisters finally found them. They mentioned the fact that they've managed to get through the water trial, the trials of sea and the trials of the earth, I guess, for going through the mine, and maybe trial of fire, trial of water, and trial of fire. Maybe I'll write something decent. And the Stone Sisters will essentially be there to remind the players that beast that they set upon them, however many sessions ago, is still hunting them and is getting closer. So the idea here is they first met together in the heart of Ubtao. The players then teleported to Port Nyanzaru and then went down to Firefinger and went back up. So I didn't at all try to calculate where the beast is. It's just a plot device for me. And then the players went on a boat and traveled all the way around, and traveled way faster than even a steel predator that doesn't sleep or rest can travel. So it hasn't been able to catch them at all. And the idea here is when it went underground, when they were underground, the predator was able to finally catch up on them, although there's still mountains and things in the way, so it would slow down a bit. But now that they're in the valley, they're back doing actual like hex crawl shit in the jungle. Now the steel predator is catching up to them. So it's essentially just a reminder that, hey, this thing is coming. BT dubs, don't forget about that one. The other story moment that will happen, so there's not really anything else that the Stone Sisters do, because the Steel Predator is still the main thing that they did, is that Zendala, which is another reminder, and a reminder that Mannix's main personal quest is coming up, is going to leave a message on Mannix's sending stone. So they have a paired sending stone between them that can send messages, and she will have arrived in Omu, and because she can polymorph and fly around, she's going to actually get to tell the players a little bit about Omu. So there'll be a little bit of a scene there as Mannix listens to the message, and then he can send a message to Zendala, which will be really interesting. I haven't yet determined where and in what circumstances they will find Zendala in Omu, but I am putting that in my back pocket. I'm going to save that for, at some point in Omu, sooner rather than later, they will find Zendala in there. And then they will also, and she will mention the fact that she does not see her father, Artist Kimber, but she does see red-robed wizards around the area. So there is that. So that'll be another reminder of like, hey, Zendala is here. Zendala made it to Omu, with the idea that hopefully Mannix will still want to work with her, and especially because she's been feeding him intel and they've been kind of working together. So my goal here is, so that's the first, like, again, this is all just story stand. There's no combat here. This is just, I'm explaining all this to the players as they travel across the Valley of Lost Honor. One more thing. The Frost Giant. I am going to have a Frost Giant encounter, probably around the end of the Valley of Lost Honor. And this was the one encounter that I felt like I wanted to do that we didn't get to do in the Hex Crawl in terms of like story wise, because it fit really well because Artist Kimber is a part of my party's story, specifically with Mannix coming to Schultz, hired by Zendala. Like all of this, I teased the artist thing. And then the Frost Giants were like one of the things in the random encounters that it's like, oh yeah, there's this other force hunting him down. Obviously, there's a lot of forces out there, but I just thought the Frost Giant encounter was a neat one, and it was one that I didn't get to run while they were still doing the Hex Crawl. So now that we have like this last bit of Jungle Hex Crawl, that's the one encounter that I did want to do, which was the Frost Giant encounter. And it's Frost Giants basically showing up with a couple Winter Wolves, and it's really a dialogue scene. Now, if the players want to throw down, or if the Frost Giants feel like they're being evasive, and I may even hide my rolls and just determine on where the dice go and how the players act, because it could turn into a combat encounter, and I have a map for it. I mean, it's just I threw together this is the Valley of Lost Honor with a bunch of giants and wolves. I need to throw the players on here. If I don't think I'm going to put them on this map unless combat breaks out, though, because this is one of those situations where, the players start thinking tactically like a battle if they start seeing a battle map. So I don't think I'm going to put them on this map unless a fight actually breaks out. And it's only going to break out if the players are really dickish and assholes to the Frost Giants, or they're very evasive. The Frost Giants will basically be like, where is Artist Kimber? Do you know Artist Kimber? Let me see your hands, because they're going to be searching for the Ring of Winter on anybody. It's almost like a cop shakedown, basically. And we'll see how cool the players act with a bunch of giants around, and it's funny is, they made it to level 7 now, so they might be feeling pretty high and mighty. Last time they leveled up, let's see, when did level 6 occur? I try to throw something big at them whenever they level up. Okay, I've done this 2 times in a row. So level 6, the first thing I threw at them was Tinder swooping down and burning their ship to the ground while they were on it. So just blowing them up. And then when they made it to level 5, it was almost the first session. Sorry, the Steel Predator attack was that they actually had the Flail Snail fight when they were first level 5. The next session after level 5, so their second time at level 5, was the Steel Predator attack. I thought I timed that a little bit better, but so it's funny, it's just their first. And then level 4, their first time at level 4 was the giant Siege of Camp Vengeance when the huge undead army rolled in. So I have a tendency to throw some really big stuff at them whenever they level up. I wonder if they've caught up to this fact and they're leery. In other words, they should be afraid when they level up now. Be like, oh no, what's going to happen? This is not meant to be a combat encounter if the players play their cards right. But what's funny is they can fuck this up very easily. The Frost Giants will just move on. And it's supposed to be a reminder that Artist Kimber is out there. The Frost Giants are searching for him. He's got the Ring of Winter. The Frost Giants want it. But they're not necessarily looking to just murder everyone in sight. They're searching for something. So unless maybe, I don't know, they want to. The interesting thing is I can turn this into a fight if the Frost Giants extort them and shake them down for items, because players will not part with loot. So if I at all have one of the, maybe one of the giants gets a little fresh with the players and starts, I'm gonna take this and try to take a gem or something, that could blow up into a fight into their faces. And I don't know what the CR rating is for this, but giants are pretty fucking hard. I mean, we did play Storm King's Thunder, so 3 CR8 giant. Now, what's funny is, they're fully rested, level 7 players. I think they could actually kick ass here pretty well. And it's all in the numbers, but I mean, giants, look at that. The average 50 damage, if they get both of these off, they're killing people. So, it'll be interesting to see. I don't expect it to turn into a combat encounter. It's not meant to be that way, but this is D&D, and I am certainly leaving combat on the table, especially because I've got a battle map set up for it. So we will see. I think Frost Giants will be a fun surprise, because nobody expects Frost Giants in the jungle. That is the idea there. That's the one encounter I wanted to do. What is the great suggestion? Have you considered creating handouts during times while you're narrating. Some picture that symbolizes the mood of the RP encounter. A picture of the NPC. I should be better about handouts. That is a good suggestion. I wonder if is there at least a sending stone. Well, what I should do. Whenever Zendala texts him, essentially, I should reveal her portrait because I believe she's got a handout. So I think that'd be pretty good if I can show that one to players during her scene. I'm actually gonna put that in my notes. That's a good suggestion, rather than just like staring at this map and listening to me talk. Let's see. Show Zendala handout. Put that right into my notes. I like that suggestion. I don't have one for the Sohn sisters. It's not a very big scene either. I could just show them a fire newt picture too for when they look at that. If I can maybe find an image of what I think the Valley of Lost Honor would look like, then maybe some kind of just volcanic wasteland. If I can find some kind of cool generic picture. That would probably be more effective for the like montage of travel. So I might look at doing that. But that is a good suggestion to have more handouts. So I'm trying to catch up on chat a little bit. Torches on the mountainside, but it is fire newts. Yeah, a lot of fire newts, and I want to just play it up like a story moment. Essentially, one thing I did play with was the Sohn sisters haunting the fire newts and getting the fire newts to attack the players or chase the players or something, which I think could be pretty fun, especially if the players can like somehow see the Sohn sisters doing that. But as I mentioned, I don't really want to use fire newts anymore, even different fire newts. And B, they've already got the steel predator hunting them, so it just seems superfluous at that point. So I think the Sohn sisters will be very confident in the steel predator's ability to get things done. All right, so we've got all that story. We've got the frost giant encounter. When we step closer, so there's this little bit of jungle, like 20 or 30 miles of jungle to Omu. What I'm planning on here is that the players will learn with that message from Zendala. What I don't have planned is Mannix will obviously probably reply to Zendala. I need to make sure I have like some replies set up because it would make sense unless I have her incapacitated somehow, or maybe she's lost the sending stone, which that could be an interesting tactic. Maybe she got attacked. In fact, I mentioned the fact that she gets attacked by gargoyles because she tries to fly over Omu, and it has 100-foot cliff walls, and if you fly, these gargoyles come to life and attack you. And she mentions that. I need to have some replies in place in case Mannix tells her something. But she will basically tell them, hey, here's the way to get into Omu, which will lead them to that southwestern entrance, which is... I love this map so much. That's why I love this campaign in Roll20. These maps are so freaking good. Bring back Mike Schley, damn it. Anyway. This is such a good map. I love this map. You know what I need to do is... Hang on, pardon while I need to actually copy that, because this is going to be an overland map. Oops, let me make that a lot bigger. Yeah, maybe that big. So that's about 50 feet across. So the players will be represented by, like, this is their party token as they make it into Omu. And so my goal here is to treat it like in Port Nyanzaru or Schultz, where they can, they'll tell me and I will move them along this area. I'm just going to show them this whole map. I initially teased with like the idea of maybe giving them, putting the whole thing in Fog of War and giving them vision as if they were a character in it. Because I was like, well, you can't see the whole map from when you come down here. Like that's not realistic. You would only see a certain distance in front of you. But this map is so cool, and I just love that kind of video game idea of, opening the world map and just fucking seeing it. I guess, well, video games do the Fog of War thing too, but a lot of them you still see like Horizon Zero Dawn is one I remember, where you see the whole world. It's just like you haven't filled in the like the points of interest until you actually get to them. So, but I think I'm literally going to play it up with having like one of those mall "You Are Here" signs. So at the beginning, when they enter Omu, they see like a map, and that's kind of the excuse of like why you can see everything. They'll see the map of the area. This whole area will be like scratched out. And then if you notice, I actually put I made a little symbol. I didn't make them, but I cut them out digitally of the symbols of each shrine and put those on the map because again, I want to use that like I want to annotate the map so the players aren't just wandering willy-nilly and trying to figure out where they need to go. Instead, it's like Port Nyanzaru and all these other overland maps I've used where I highlight points of interest on the map so they know, okay, we want to go here, we want to go here, we want to go there. And then while they're going through these areas, if I want to, I can do some random encounters or explain like, hey, if you want to, you can search a house or something else. But for the very beginning, I went ahead and put the shrines on here because I figured that's something that the map would have at the beginning is all these trickster god shrines and kind of where they are and which god that they are a shrine to. And obviously that's a big part of the entire main quest of Omu is going to these shrines and getting these things. So I put the little green highlight around them because I actually can't really, they kind of blend in a lot. I also highlighted a few areas on the map that are points of interest. So the amphitheater, where the King of Feathers is, the Bazaar, which has a bunch of kobold warrens underneath it, the Royal Palace, which is where the Yuan Ti Fane is, although I believe it's located underneath. The walled compound, which is where the Red Wizards were, but then it was destroyed by the Yuan Ti. And there are certain areas that I don't think would be on that I was going to have on the map, but I don't think would make sense on there, like the Great Rift. It wouldn't say on the map Great Rift, I don't think that I would use, but I don't know about that one. And then this camp is a little worrisome because that actually wouldn't be on the map. That's just like a camp that they could find. But again, it's kind of playing with what I can work with here. And I don't know if I'll highlight abandoned camp. I don't know. I haven't decided on that one yet. I want to highlight, sections on there, but some of them like fallen log. Like, is that something that would be on a map necessarily? So I need to try to differentiate, like, in other words, what is something you can go to and what is just art, which is a tricky thing to do. But anyway, before they reach Omu, like right before, I'm going to have the Steel Predator attack. That's like literally their mini boss. Before they reach the stairs, like they're going along the path, they see, a path open up. They see the stairs down, even in the distance, to go to Omu. Steel Predator emerges. It's found them. It attacks. Party's level 7 now. So they're 2 levels higher. But this thing is a beast. I think it is this map. Nope, that is not that map. Shoot, which map is it? I thought I... Oh, crap, which map did I use? This one. Okay, I need to change that one. It's not. It's Vorn. Apparently it was the Vorn map I used. Let's see here. I'm going to call it Omu Outskirts. So the Steel Predator, which has been hunting them this whole time, will find them again. And I'm trying to create a cool scenario where, the players, and Chris did this really well in Storm King's Thunder. Storm King's Thunder is built for this, where you meet enemies that you have no chance against early on, and then later, as you gain levels and gain more power, you can fight them, and it feels really good. I frankly don't know if the players can actually fight a Steel Predator at level 7. I don't know. I haven't looked at Kobold Fight Club for it. But it's still a fucking CR 15 or 16 creature. This thing is from, I believe, Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes. I think. CR 16. It's got a stealth of 8. Plus 8, so it's going to surprise pretty much everybody because I'm treating that as an 18 stealth check. It opens up with a Stunning Roar, which is a 60-foot cone, DC 19 con saving throw that stuns you, and you take 5d10 thunder damage. And it can do 3 attacks with an average of about 15 damage per attack at a plus 12. Pretty simple creature to run. It also has advantage on saving throws. And yeah, that Stunning Roar alone, which it can recharge on a 5 or 6, is devastating. Now, the players, so this will be the introduction of Artist and Dragonbait, also what I'm trying to get at. So I toyed around with this in different versions on how to introduce all these different elements, how the players find artists. I've been teasing him forever, and I thought it'd be really cool if the artist found the players. So in this case, artist has been making his way towards Omu. He went to Oralunga to ask. Basically, his backstory, at least in my campaign, is he's searching for his wife, which was who was a Bare of Mesro, which is like an immortal guardian. And he's also immortal because of the Ring of Winter, essentially. And he is looking for what happened to Mesro. And he wants to go confront Rosnisi about it because Rosnisi has a big history with Mesro, and they have a history together. He's fought Rosnisi before, and he's heard Rosnisi is now has become a Yuan Ti and is now like I guess he learned from the Oracle at Orlunga that Rosnisi is a Yuan Ti and is in Omu, and he's been making his way down there and basically getting lost in the jungle and having his own little adventures. If this was a TV show, I'm sure I'd be launching these spin-off adventures of Artist and Dragonbait in the jungle. Which would be great. But he's made it to maybe he's arrived at Omud around the same time, and maybe I haven't decided if the Steel Predator's been around or the Predator. I guess the idea is it hunts the player, so it probably only just arrived at around the same time. So maybe they just all happen to arrive together. I'm not quite sure on the details there. But the idea here is that artists will see this group of adventurers. He was an adventurer once, so he obviously recognized what this group is pretty quick. And maybe even word of these adventures has spread at this point. He doesn't exactly get Twitter updates in the jungle, but he maybe he's even heard of these guys. That'd be a kind of cool thing to do, actually. If he has heard of this group of adventurers, that's something that makes the players feel, and I think that helps players that endears the players to an NPC. Also, if they've like heard of you and kind of treat you as a bit of a fan. An artist isn't super powerful in of himself. He's not like a super powerful stat block or anything, but the Ring of Winter alone lets him do all kinds of crazy shit. So the idea here is the Steel Predator attacks the players. Depending on how that first round goes, a lot of, D&D, very swingy. Who knows what's going on with the dice? Players could all fail the Stunning Roar and be fucked, or they could all succeed and be okay and have their weapons drawn and ready to fight this thing. I'm hoping the Steel Predator kind of kicks ass a little bit, with the idea that Artist and Dragonbait swoop in to save the day. Now, I do have a hesitation about taking the fun away from the players. I don't want to do that. It's more of a, oh shit, reinforcements are here. Let's rally and really fight this thing, kind of a thing. So it's going to be very tricky because, again, it's very hard to balance it out. I don't know how well the Steel Predator will perform, but the idea here is the Steel Predator attacks the players, and Artist and Dragonbait show up to help them. That's the idea. Damage immunities. Does it have damage immunities? Oh, it sure fucking does. Well, non-magical. At this point, and that's a big difference between maybe level 5 and 7 for them, I think all the players have magical weapons. Theron's Wild Shape is magical. George has double magical blades. Kaless has the magical rapier. Mannix, doesn't really matter what Mannix has. Mannix uses his green flame blade, I think, regardless, which counts as magical. I think Gillian is actually the only one that doesn't have magical weapons. She's still using mundane stuff, but that's because Gillian is going more and more heavy into spell casting, which he does have advantage of. So, I mean, technically he's got immunities, but he's got resistances to thunder, which makes him more resistant to Gillian's shatter, I think. As well as lightning, if she wants to do whatever. I gave her some kind of call lightning. Is it the one? And she hasn't been able to use it yet because I think she got it when she was like underground. So it does have resistance against those. But I actually think it's also immune to a lot of conditions, which is nice. So yeah, I mean it's got over 200 hit points, 20 armor class. Like it's a fucking beast. So I don't. Yeah, I expect the Steel Predator to be kicking their ass a little bit. And then I expect Artist and Dragonbait to. I basically just haven't decided she can make a hut. Not in combat. She can't. It takes 10 minutes to cast. I'm pretty sure we've The one nice thing about the hut is it's really not designed for combat. The only time they can really use the hut effectively is if they know combat is going to occur, and then they have literally 10 minutes or more to prepare. So technically, during like the fire nuke, like back off or rest, they could have like jumped into a hut, I guess, for that. I don't know if I would have had enough. Well, I wasn't gonna let them long rest, so. But I think she could have used the hut. Maybe she was out of spell slots at that point. But she has to be able to prepare. So the one time they used it in combat was during that giant wasp encounter outside of the Typhoon Palace, because they saw those coming and they were beasts that were just in their own nest. So they weren't like aggressive at the players. The players could set up for that. This is the kind of thing where I'm having this, and this is another reason why the Steel Predator fight is harder, because it's going to try to ambush them again, because that's what it does. It fucking hunts and stalks. So of course it's going to try to stealth them. And it's got a really good stealth score. So it is going to get off that surprise round stunning roar, and no, Gillian can't cast her hut during combat, essentially. Yeah, Theron could go berserk. I think I made it so he only goes berserk if he is actually wild shaped. Let's see. Yeah, whenever hostile creature damages you while you are wild shaped. So if he actually hasn't wild shaped, the berserk thing doesn't go off. It only clicks on. The idea is he has to like literally reshape his bones and all that to be in a new form, and that's what causes him such pain to go into berserk mode when he's wild shaped. So that is a thing, though. If obviously I attack him while he's wild shaped, and there's obviously as a DM I can use its 3 attacks on like 3 different people and really spread that shit out, because it's not meant to be. I don't want to necessarily do a big party wipe here, but I do want this to be a really cool boss fight. Like this is essentially the boss fight for the jungle. If we're moving from one chapter to another, we're ending the entire jungle crawl. This is meant to be the culmination. I teased this monster before they actually even fought it before, which is a really rare thing for a DM that gets to do that, where the players actually successfully ran away and are hopefully still afraid of this thing, even though they've leveled up and they've gotten stronger. And maybe they'll start to kick its ass a little bit, and that's fine, but I still expect to do a lot of damage to them. And then I think having Artis and Dragonbait show up either at the end of round 1, at the end of round 2, I haven't quite decided. That's the one thing I'm going to play with is when do they show up? And keep in mind, I'll get a surprise round. I think I'll get a surprise round. What is Mannix's passive perception these days? So I'm going to treat it as an 18 stealth. Jesus Christ, he's got an 18 passive perception. Well, okay, here's a question for the chat. If you have an 18 passive perception, do you see someone that rolls an 18 stealth? Because I think it's usually ruled that the person doing the thing, if it's tied, gets the thing. If somebody... So I treat passive perception as like armor class, essentially, and stealth is the attack roll, then stealth would win. So I think if you tie, then I think the one doing the thing wins the tie. So I expect a stealth of 18 beats a passive perception of 18, if that makes sense. But I might be wrong. So I believe with a stealth of 18, even Mannix would get surprised by this creature, which is another cool way of saying, oh shit, this thing is powerful. So it would get the surprise runoff, and last time I remember, I think I went pretty early. So it does the surprise round, and then it gets a follow-up, and then we begin the round completely, and obviously it's going to start with its stunning roar. So depending on where in the initiative I fall, which is, it's got a plus... Actually, it only has a +3, so it's not crazy on the initiative from what I can tell. What is its initiative? Can I even look at that? It's got a +3 dex. I don't actually know. Initiative, does monsters have a built-in proficiency bonus for initiative? If it's only a +3, that's not too crazy. So that could make a big difference depending on where I roll versus where the players roll. But they will be surprised, and that's a big fucking deal for making this fight a lot harder. But then Artis and Dragonbait roll up, and yes, I am going to have to look deep into what Artis can do and what Dragonbait can do, because most likely Artis will probably spend one turn just attacking this thing as normal, maybe not even realize how powerful it is, and then once he sees an action, be like, oh shit, I need to actually whip out the Ring of Winter and start really laying down some pretty crazy attacks. And the things he can do is nuts. It is nuts. And this is also a good opportunity to show off what the Ring of Winter can do, and the fact that hopefully the players would not be able to win this fight without this added ally, because, why is everybody searching for this thing? Why is everybody searching for Artis? It's because the Ring of Winter is crazy powerful, and I definitely want him to be able to do something cool with it. He shoots out Cone of Cold, and he can do Flesh to Ice, Ice Storm, Freezing Sphere, Wall of Ice. He can create ice creatures. I'm going to have to analyze it and see like what exactly he's going to do and when. But I definitely want him to make use of the Ring of Winter in some cool ways. And just Dragon Bait showing up, this crazy dragon guy with just a flaming sword, like all that shit's going to look cool. So I definitely want to show these characters off, let them help the players with the Steel Predator, and that will be their introduction to, welcome to Omu. Welcome exiting the jungle and going into Omu and the goal is they defeat the Steel Predator. It will fight to the death. And there will be a fun, like, little screaming scene with the hag suddenly, like, fearful for the first time, which I think would be cool. And then I'm hoping that, obviously the players will be like, hey, do you know your daughter's looking for you? And then he'll be like, daughter, I don't. And I want to kind of play it a little confusingly and mystery. Like, he's like, well, I'm pretty old. I may have fathered. I've forgotten lifetimes at this point. So maybe I've fathered some kids that I'm not quite aware of. There's been some, I've been around the block a few times kind of a thing. So he might leave it up to the players to be like, okay, well, I've got somebody. What I want to do is have Mannix contact Zendala and say, hey, we found Artis, come on down and meet him. And then do a cool showdown as Zendala comes down and then basically tells Mannix, all right, Mannix, us together, we can defeat him and take the Ring of Winter. Let's do this. And then this creates a big, cool, dramatic fight moment between everybody. And I want to do that for Omu as well. I just haven't decided when I want to do it. Do I want to save that for further into Omu? But the other thing is I don't necessarily want Artis and Dragonbait to be with the players for too long because they are very powerful and they can break things up a bit. Artis does want to meet Rosnisi, though, which would kind of interestingly align with the players. So although I'm having Artis meet the players here, I still need to work out like how exactly long he stays with the players. I'm even toying with the idea of once the players realize they need the shrines, Artis will just volunteer to like go to one of the shrines and do it and collect one of the cubes himself, because that's a whole thing where the players don't have to go to all the shrines. The Red Wizards are getting some. Rosnisi has one, for example. So maybe they can use them like that, because I definitely don't want Artis to be with the party throughout Omu. That is not what I want to do, and I want to be able to resolve the whole Zendala outstanding quest, because that, once they deal with Zendala and Artis and the Ring of Winter, however they resolve that will complete Mannix's personal quest. So that will be the completion of his in Omu, and then Kaless will be with the Red Wizards, which I've got another map for that. That's the, if you can see here, the walled compound. They'll meet Orvix. They've got a bunch of zombies there. I am running way longer than my time. As you can tell, I'm really excited about all this stuff for Omu, though. I've got a lot of really fun stuff planned, main quest stuff, personal quest stuff. Omu is a really great location that I'm looking forward to it, which is why I'm kind of just thundering through the Valley of Lost Honor and getting through it. But I have a feeling that this will be, we'll get to this fight, and this fight should probably take up the rest of tomorrow's session, to where I don't think we'll quite make it to Omu tomorrow. I think we'll start Omu next time. So I'm going to do even more Omu prep, obviously, for probably the next couple crafting annihilations. I roll for stealth and don't use passive stealth. A 50% chance to beat Mannix's passive. That's true. I could roll for stealth. The one thing I remember, and this might have been part of like earlier editions of D&D, is you can like take 10. So yeah, because that's like your average, I guess. So it would an average roll for it would be an 18. So I treat that as like, it has like an 18 on most of the time for stealth. It could fuck up its stealth and get like a 10 or a 12. Oddly enough, I think even if it rolled that low, it would still surprise the ladies. I think they, for some reason, remember them having a pretty low. Yeah, I think they both have pretty low wisdom. They have an 11. Gillian has an 11. Oops, come on. I'm holding down shift. And Kaless also has an 11. So it's got a +8. So as long as it rolls a 3 or better, it's going to at least surprise Kaless and Gillian. But I really want to get off this surprise round. It adds to the danger of this boss fight, having the players be able to run at it and set things up. I don't know. I just feel like I need to I really need to do this. So, and I'm not going to cheat about it necessarily, because I'm not saying like, well, you guys are surprised. I'm treating it as an 18, but nobody has higher than an 18. So I think I'm going to use I think I'm just going to take the 10, let it be an 18 stealth check, surprise the players, and go from there. And then we'll see based on initiative and how the players react. At what point, if things already look really dire, then I'll have Artist and Dragonbait show up at the end of the round, and they'll roll initiative and be able to join in on the fight. 3.5. Okay, I'm glad I didn't just completely make that up. I do think I was from Neverwinter Nights or something. Artist Winter is coming, Kimber, liked Valinda Shadowmantle's tweet. Oh my god, a whole bunch of Reactive Fuse got in my house. That's great. I remember all those memes too, whenever they had here are the Avengers using Twitter and Spider-Man using Facebook and all that. I love those. My character had the ring. Kalessa is going to try to steal that ring from Artist. That shit's happening. That's happening. Xanathar says, solo monster encounters for a 5-person party of level 7 is CR10 FYI. All right, but what about a 5-person party plus Artist and Dragonbait? That's the thing. And I don't know, players always surprise me. They always surprise me. It's very rare where a combat encounter is way harsher for the players than any of us realized. And a lot of times just because the rolls, because, it is a swingy game and the dice can go one way or the other. But I'm always surprised by how well players can perform based on how well they can coordinate and unleash their abilities and do all the things. So I think they will perform pretty well here, but a lot of it is going to depend on how are these saving throws going to go. Are they going to be stunned? The crazy thing is, I believe it even says, it does say they can repeat the saving throw, so they can even repeat it, but it is a freaking Constitution DC 19 con saving throw, so that would suck if people are locked down for too terribly long. But con, I think the party's actually pretty good at con. Even the rogues, Kalessa's got a +5. I'm sure George and Theron both have good con. Gillian and Mannix would be the only ones that would be really in trouble from this. She's got a +2, and our dear sweet thin boy Mannix with a +0. Mannix is basically fucked in this fight. I'm sorry, Mannix. Artist to save the day. You're kind of screwed. So, they do get to repeat it. And the one thing I could do is have the Predator obviously not recharge a Stunning Roar. So that's something I can back off and play. A big part of the balance during combat is I choose what the Predator goes after. And I can have, Dragonbait going with its swinging sword. And so the Predator's tied up fighting Dragonbait a lot of the times. Or maybe it's incurring a lot of attacks of opportunity or doing something to where it's not just devastating the players left and right. And especially if it's not being able to get off that Stunning Roar, every single turn. That's also a big deal. These guys are in the dynamic lighting, by the way, so we don't see them yet. So yeah, that's the plan. Stunning Steel Predator fight. To cap off the end of our jungle excursion, Artist and Dragonbait will show up, and then the players will be entering Omu probably as early as not this week, but next week's session. I talked during the Patreon Monday update about possibly doing a Halloween special. That was on Monday. It is now Thursday, and I've gotten so excited about running all this Omu stuff that I haven't actually thought about it. And unfortunately, we would only have a week to prep. And like I said, I'm really excited about getting to Omu. So I have mixed feelings now about doing one. I may talk to Chris about it. I haven't actually talked to him all week to see if maybe he'd be interested in running something or if he would even have time to do it at this point, because it would either have to be in place of Friday's session on the 25th, or we would do a specifically just bonus episode, which would be really hard to try to bring everybody together again on another night to do another Halloween one-shot. And what's too bad is I actually have a good opportunity with the Sohn sisters. I can totally put them in a nightmare scenario and do some kind of Halloween thing, which could be fun. And maybe that's a good transition for because we're transitioning into Omu. So maybe I'll work something out. We'll see. But it's still a bit up in the air. I haven't quite nailed that down as of right now. All right, y'all. I have gone way over my time. I have a feeling that's going to be the case for probably the next couple of Crafting Annihilations, because I'm super excited about Omu, and there's so much cool stuff to cover with everything that's going on in our campaign. So thank you so much for joining me for the stream. I will be here for my Let's Play for Bard's Tale tomorrow afternoon, and of course for Tomb of Annihilation tomorrow evening. And I will see you all then for that. Thank you so much for watching.